Hi, everyone. My name is David Kaul, and as you can tell by my accent, I am not Brazilian, even though I've been working very hard for the last several years to speak and learn Portuguese. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Glagis and all the speakers for their fantastic presentations. Some of them I've heard speak before, and I honestly never get tired of listening to them. I think they're all fantastic, so thank you. I've been at Google for about 6 years now. And I've had the pleasure of consulting clients across about 20 different countries in over 30 offices in 5 continents. And what I like to talk to our customers about how they can get more for their advertising dollars and how they can make their advertising dollars work a little bit harder. So today I want to bring together some of the key points that were addressed in earlier presentations and see if we can make sense of all of it in one integrated marketing package for all of you. So with that said, I want to first touch on the point that Igor mentioned, which is that your opportunity in real estate is 12 million consumers. I actually think that this is a very conservative opportunity. When we look at statistics and we look at consumers that plan to buy or rent in the next 6 months in Brazil, we come up with numbers as high as 18.5 million. So the question is, where do we actually get this math? So if we look at the size of the market in Brazil, okay, about 30 million people that plan or intend to buy or rent in the next 6 months. And the subset of those people that are online, as Igor mentioned, is 12 million. Now, a lot of you have regional constituencies. So we want to show you what is that opportunity for each region in Brazil. So in the south, we have about 6.6 million. It makes sense because of the population size. In the southeast. In the south, we have 2.2 million. In the northeast, we have 1.6 million. In the Midwest, we have 1 million. And then also in the north, we have 626,000. So when I first looked at these numbers, they just made sense because of population. But what did not make sense to me was that the category leader online only has about 2.6 million customers at best out of this 12 or possibly 18.5 million, right? So very large opportunity for all real estate marketers. And what I started asking myself when I saw these numbers is why? Why is there such a discrepancy or a gap that exists between the 2.6 million and the 12 to 18.5 million, depending on what sources you look at? Now, I'm going to ask you guys to get involved in this presentation because we're nearing lunch. So I'm going to ask you a lot of times to raise your hands, and we'll do a little mini focus group here. For those of you that are very brave, you can feel free to speak out loud. But as history shows, sometimes people are a little bit shy about speaking out loud, so showing your hand is fantastic too. So I want you to think about when you first became aware of a product or service. So for those of you that started using the internet before 1995, I want you to raise your hand. If you can remember, honestly, we can't lie. Before 1995, how many people used the internet? And I'll participate too. So I did not use the internet before 1995, or I can't remember. So we have 1, 2, 3. I could see 3 people, okay? If you remember using the internet between 1995 and the year 2000, raise your hand. Okay. More people. And then after 2000. Okay. So actually statistics show, because we're probably in a biased sample size, that only 2.3% of people in Brazil were using the internet as of the year 2000. So if that statistic is true, why don't we call the 21st century the internet or the connected age and everything that happened before pre-internet, pre-connected age? So I want you to remember, based on how you answered the question, how you first became aware of a product or service, whether you used the internet in 1995, in 2000, or afterwards. So for those of you that first became aware of a product or service through television, show of hands. Okay, so I only see 5 people. Let's say word of mouth from your friends, your family. Show of hands. First becoming aware of a product or service. Okay. So that means that roughly, just by looking, that 80% of you, unless people are shy, which I suspect you might be, became aware of a product or service besides friends and television. Okay, Now, while this might be true, I've asked a lot of people in Brazil, actually, on the street at different companies. The vast majority first say television, and then they say word of mouth, okay? So what's the difference today between the connected world and the non-connected world? How many of you, show of hands, have a laptop or a desktop computer? Okay. How many of you have some type of mobile device? Okay, wow, I actually saw more hands. So how many of you watch television? Once a week. Less people than the second. All right. So let's say the majority of you use all three. Then actually what we're doing is we're going from, in a non-connected world, to a connected world from 1 to 3 screens, as was mentioned before. But what's interesting is many people in Brazil, their second screen besides a television will not be a desktop or a laptop computer, it will be a mobile phone. I actually found this recently when I was asking consumers in the street in Sao Paulo, and they showed me their smartphone, and they said they don't watch TV anymore, they're using their smartphone. So the second point I want to make, the second moment, is consideration. So after you first became aware of a product or service, do you remember how you considered it? For me, I actually went into a physical store or a physical location and found out more information. So for those of you that when you were trying to find out information on your Saturday afternoon, that you would visit more than 5 locations, for example, if you're looking to buy or rent real estate, raise your hand. More than 5 locations. No one. 1 person. More than 3. Okay. More than 1. Okay. Now, with the internet and the connected age, it's much easier to get access to information. As Igor mentioned, consumers are more social, they're more connected, and they're also more informed. So the internet provides us with a very extensive inventory of options, no matter what industry you're selling in, compared to the non-connected age where you actually physically had to go to locations and figure it out for yourself. So for consideration, we have to think about more information and more decisions that need to be made. Now, when you actually bought prior to the internet, right, you had to, again, go to that physical location. And now, because of access to information, right, actually an abundance of information, consumers sometimes make decisions on what they're going to buy prior to actually entering a physical location. So what we like to think here is that the new point of sale is anywhere, at any time. And specifically in 2012, Google actually helped $6 billion of business in real estate. This is what we estimate, at least. So the last point I want to talk about for consumer moments is loyalty. Now, let's say you had an experience with a product or service, and this experience was good or it was bad, and you wanted to talk about it to your friends, to your family. How would you do that before the internet? Was it difficult? Would you write a letter to a newspaper, and then would that newspaper publish it? Would you write a letter to a brand and then hope the brand would respond to you? Well, you could imagine, at least when I imagined about this, it was really hard. And now with the internet, brands can go from a monologue to a dialogue, right? It's a lot easier. For those of you who have ever watched a video online, raise your hands. If you've ever watched a video online, okay? If you have a social network account, raise your hand. Okay. So the majority of you raise your hands for both. So if you're consumers, but you're also marketers, you can imagine it's easier. Put all these points together, represent the new consumer. And what I find fascinating about this new consumer is they have more options, more information, but the key point of all of this is that they're more undecided. So I'm going to do another survey. In any given month, there's 500 million searches for the word imóveis. Okay? Now, I want you to raise your hands of how many of these searches do you think are associated to a specific brand in real estate, okay? If you think that when consumers, this is on google.com, so taking the world's largest focus group, google.com, or the world's largest database of intentions, 500 million in 1 month, what percent is associated to a brand? If you think more than 50%, raise your hand. More than 50% of searches are associated to a brand. I see 2 hands. more than 30% of searches associated to a brand, more hands. 10% of searches, more hands. At least 5% of the 500 million. So 10 million searches. It seems reasonable, right? Okay. The reality is, in real estate, there is only 1% of searches that are associated to a specific brand, 4% to other brands, if we're looking at the category leader example, which leaves an overwhelming 95% of people that are undecided on brands. So we talked, Igor had mentioned again, socialness, connectivity, consumers being informed, but I just talked to you about because of the influx, the abundance of options, consumers are undecided and more undecided than ever. So for you, as marketers, what can you do about this? So here we have the moments that we talked about: awareness, consideration, purchase, and loyalty. And in the traditional world, we had television, journals, newspapers, and radio that could help us, right? Consideration, word of mouth, classifieds ads. We also could buy in a physical store. It was the only way to buy before the internet, right? And still it's the way that people, the majority buys today. And then lastly, buzz. So what you see is two sets of arrows, okay? The first set of arrows, it says atenção. Traditional means are fantastic at getting eyeballs or attention. But what we didn't know about these consumers is the commercial intent of these consumers, okay? It was actually very difficult to understand still today what makes up these customers, and are they actually interested in buying our product or service or in renting and buying a home. On the right-hand side, we see that as we move from consideration to purchase to loyalty, we start to capture intentions, develop relationships, and our customers start to form preferences for our brands, okay? So, if we look how digital can help, and this is just some examples. It's not an exhaustive list. Some examples we're going to talk about today. For awareness, Glade just talked about online video, complementing television, for example. For consideration, instead of asking your neighbor, you can ask the internet. And we've got search and display, which can help. For purchasing, if you consider that decisions might be made before entering a physical location because of this excess of information, then the purchase actually exists all over the place, right, if consumers have already made up their mind. And then lastly, for loyalty, we've got online video and social. Now, if I take these away, we could see that the strategy is less complete, and we might be really good at getting attention, but we might be not as good at capturing intentions, developing relationships, and having customers form preferences for our brand. Otherwise, we would have more than 95% of people who are actually undecided. We would change those numbers. So for those of you who think that a digital strategy is essential to future success, raise your hand. Okay. So I think not only digital, but also integrated. So let's talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. So there's 4 recommendations we have for you today. The first is, Glade, you spoke about in the last presentation. We'd all like you to include television as part of your video strategy, so you can generate awareness across all screens. But rather than give you the math, I want to take you from before to today with a very clear example of a video that I find extremely entertaining. And then afterwards, I'm going to ask you a question about it. So let's roll the video.
Nessie?
Hey, kid.
Kobe Bryant?
Would you like to have some ice cream, young man?
Ice cream? Sí.
The best fly with Europe's best airline. Turkish Airlines.
So if you've seen that video before, just a quick show of hands. Has anyone seen that video? All right. For those of you that saw the video, were you delighted with it? Did you like it? Did you like the video? If you liked the video, raise your hands. Fantastic. You know what? 105 million other views say the same thing. This video has been viewed 105 million times, okay? And what's great about it is that as an advertiser, as a marketer, you don't pay unless the consumer's engaged. And when I was looking around, it was dark, but I saw a lot of smiles in the room. So thank you for your attention for that video. The second recommendation we like to make is we want you to always be present, moments of consideration, to influence that 95% of people that are undecided on an apartment in the example that we showed you earlier. So I'm going to walk through some very quick math, and I think this is one of the most important points of my presentation, okay? So the first is, if you look at the search for a brand, again, we said this is only 5% of searches that exist. For the word apartment, for example, we have 40,000 searches. But if we look at the number of searches for the brand and the word apartment combined, we have 20 million. Many, many, many more. If you look at visits to real estate websites, we have 13,000 for brand and 320 million for the portfolio of apartment plus the brand. Now, for contacts, the brand will generate only 480, but apartment plus the brand, these are words that are typed into google.com, will generate 6,500 contacts. So let's go to the most important part, which is sales, okay? For the brand, we get 5. From the 40,000, we get 5. But from apartment plus the brand, we get 65. We get 13 times as much of influencing those undecideds. But at the end of the day, lots of times we're incentivized as marketers based on a metric called return on investment or return on ad spend. And as a result of this investment, we miss the opportunity to gain more sales. So if you would accept 13 times the amount of sales for renting or buying a home at a 30-to-1 ROI, raise your hand. If you would accept, I'll repeat the question, for you to make a decision for your company, would you accept 65 sales instead of 5 sales? Would you accept a 30-to-1 return on your investment? If so, raise your hand. If you would rather have the right side versus the left side, raise your hand. Okay. So the right side, again, look at the blue numbers. It's 13 times the amount of sales, and it's a better return than you'll probably ever get from anywhere else in your lifetime. Okay? So we want you to consider influencing the undecideds because it's going to generate more bottom line for your business. So if the first opportunity is search, we like to think of the second opportunity as display, okay? For consumers that don't click on your advertisement, they might click on someone else's advertisement, and then they might wind up on a web page inside Google's display ad network, which is the largest collection of websites in the world in which marketers can advertise against, okay? But rather than talk about it, I want to show you another video and walk you through a new ad format that we have that's part of our engagement ad suite. So let's roll the video. So here you could see consumer clicks on an ad unit. And this ad unit for anthropology, it expands. Now this is an online catalog and it's interactive. So if I want to mouse over the actual woman, we could see her accessories, we could see the blouse that she's wearing, we can see her shoes, we could see prices, whether the item's in stock or not. We can navigate through the catalog to various other pages, and again, toggle in between accessories and clothes that she might choose to wear. And what's great about this is within Google's brand guidelines, you can customize this ad unit however you want. And again, it gives you a second chance opportunity to reach consumers that didn't get you the first time. Through this ad unit, you can also zoom in, you can zoom out, and you can create a very personalized experience because remember, you don't actually have a salesperson to help benefit the sale. We have to rely totally on technology and the internet state. So the third recommendation we have is we want you to activate the new point of sale. okay? So to do that, we want you to focus on being in the best position all the time, and we want you to take care of all of your stores. So recently with the Google real estate team, we looked at a number of different sites, mobile sites, tablet sites. We looked at them in Brazil, we looked at them in Argentina, we looked at them all over the world, and we saw some room for improvement. And given all the trends that have been discussed about mobile, we'd really like you all to experience your mobile site if you have one. And if you're in the process of creating one, think about the functionality. So in this example here, where we've got two statistics, one that say that for builders and for brokers, they're accessing mobile sites 85% more than they did in 2011, and tablets over 220% more than they did in the past. This is one example of a website from the United Kingdom, Zoopla, that's super easy to use. I encourage you guys after the presentation to experience their site. They've got unique filters and searches. You can favorite different apartment locations and homes to buy or rent, and it's super easy to use the site. But you have to ask a question: if someone can't use your mobile site, or you don't have a mobile site, how are they going to connect to your brand and decide on your brand? The last recommendation we have for you is we want you to spend more time with your clients. And we already started to talk about this a little bit. With YouTube, we have an example here, Sotheby's, which is a company that was founded in the United Kingdom, but actually resides in New York. And for their specific YouTube page, they had 30 million video views and almost 5,000 subscribers. And a great Google Plus example is Immobiliare, which is from Italy. And this site alone in Google Plus generates 75% more visits than Facebook. Users spend 133% more time, but one of the most important things is that they have a 22% increase in traffic to their website solely because they have a Google Plus page. So if you care about generating leads to offline sales and you're not on Google Plus, you miss out on this benefit. This will drive more traffic at no cost for the ad unit. So how can you measure all of this? One thing that I'm super excited to talk about, and then we'll close the presentation, is universal analytics. So for those of you that measure results for your business using some type of analytics, I just want to see a quick show of hands. If you measure results for your business, okay, most everyone. If you use Google Analytics to measure results, raise your hands. Lots of people, fantastic. I'm going to give you another reason today, if you're not using Google Analytics, to use Google Analytics, and that's the upcoming Universal Analytics, which will allow you to track offline conversions as well as cross-device conversions and integrate your CRM systems to push valuable information about your customers, to connect those customers in the offline world to the same customers that are actually in the online world. So for those of you who not know about Universal Analytics, I encourage you to reach out to your Google account representative, because this is something, at least in 6 years, that I've personally been waiting for and I'm very excited about, because at Google we've been trying for quite some time to tie these two worlds, given that over 95% of business is conducted in the offline world as far as transactions actually occur. So with that said, and wrapping up, we want to make the web work for you, and we've got a couple of different recommendations. So to generate greater awareness, we want you to include television as part of your video strategy. For consideration, we want you to cover those generic terms. We want you to influence the 95% of people who have not decided on buying or renting an apartment, okay? You can do this through search advertising. Again, think not only about your brand, but also about things like apartment. The third recommendation is that make sure that you engage your consumers not only on Google.com, but also across the web. And the Google Display Network can help you do that. Again, this is the world's largest network of sites in which marketers can advertise against. 10 times more page views than Google.com. For purchase, we'd encourage you to have a mobile site and to make sure that that mobile site works. Experience your own mobile site for yourself if you have one. Is it easy to find what you're looking for as a consumer? And then lastly, for loyalty, We'd love for you to create a YouTube channel if you don't have one already, as well as a Google Plus page, which will help you drive more traffic to your site. And we want you to measure all of it. And we want you to be excited about Universal Analytics because it's breakthrough. So thank you very much. Appreciate the time today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.